Hello and welcome to another episode of How to Write a Song, where today we're continuing our hip-hop song. Last time we made the melodies for our hip-hop beat, but we're still missing the actual, drum beat, so that's what we're looking at today. Now let me start with a little disclaimer. When it comes to making the drum beat, there's really not much to it. Have your snare on beat 2 and 4 and have the kick drum follow the stresses of your melody and you're basically done. But that wouldn't really make for much of an interesting video. So today we're going to talk about diversity. Now what I mean by diversity is when the beat keeps having small changes within the same part, like for example the verse. This became really common during the start of the 2000s since hip-hop started reaching a larger pop audience and as such had to appeal to people who didn't necessarily find the rap interesting enough in itself. However, during the last couple of years this trend has been receding as hip-hop has evolved into the passive-aggressive tone it has today. That doesn't mean it's gone, but it's definitely not as apparent as it has been. And even then, it's always been a very subtle technique that you don't really notice unless you know of it. Now, I could easily use Thrift again to showcase this technique, but instead, let's look at this classic. This is Drop It Like It's Hot by Snoop Dogg and Pharrell Williams from 2004, and let's try and hear what they're doing with this beat in the verse. Now firstly, they have a standard beat that goes like this.
I'm a nice dude with some nice dreams.
But every fourth measure is interrupted by this drum fill.
I can exercise you, this could be your phys ed. Cheat on your man, that's how you get it.
And furthermore, at the end of each verse, you get this synth hook.
Matter of fact, you should take 4B and think before you go a little skateboard B.
Cool, so is that it? No. The first and third verse starts like this.
I'm a nice dude with some nice dreams.
But the second verse starts with a flute like this.
I'm a gangster, but y'all knew that. The big boss dog, yeah, I had to do that.
Now, I know what you're thinking, a flute. Seriously, Kloch, is that it? And, well, yes. It's just a small thing, but it helps to create diversity in the song and to keep it interesting. If anything, it goes to show how easy a technique it can be once you know of it. And trust me, everyone who knows that song is howling along to that flute. One last great thing this beat does is changing to reflect the lyrics, like this.
You should think about it. Take a second.
And this.
I cut so much you thought I was a DJ.
This helps to make the verse differ from one another musically. However, we can't really apply it ourselves until we've actually written a verse. Alright, so I've tried to make a beat following this idea of diversity. Now, for the sake of time, I've only made one verse, and I tried to fit as much diversity into it as possible. So this is a bit over the top compared to most verses, but it's for the sake of proving a point. It sounds like this. Alright, so let's explain what's actually going on here. I'll make sure that every fourth measure is somehow marked with something new, whether big or small. So I start out with a focus on the snare so that when the real kick drum comes in 4 measures later, it sounds more deep in contrast. The snare also helps to make it feel like the beat is building up to something, making the rest of the verse feel more energetic. Then I have a fairly standard beat, but I make sure to put in a sweep in the middle to mark when 4 measures have passed. And then for the last 4 measures, I go back to a focus on the snare, though it differs from the first part, again to make it build up, this time to the chorus that's going to follow it. And I ended off with a break so that I can create contrast to when I drop the bass in the start of the chorus. While none of these techniques are the exact same as in Drop It Like It's Hot, they work the same way, to create diversity in the beat and to keep it interesting. That's all for this time. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please do comment your opinions and I will see you next week.